All right. Welcome to the Early Childhood Music Podcast, sponsored by Musikgarten. Musikgarten is the best of early childhood music education. We believe that all children are musical. Music meets the needs of children. Music benefits the whole child. Music must be introduced early and involve the family, and that adults should observe and follow the child. We offer teachers the best training and teacher resources to help them use music to teach the whole child while also offering families the best recordings and family materials. Today we have with us Amy Rucker and Ellen Johansen. Amy is a national teacher trainer for Musikgarten and the current president of the Early Childhood Music and Movement Association. She had her first early childhood music training with Dr. Lorna Heiga in the late 90s and has been teaching the Musikgarten curriculum for over 20 years. Amy has a degree in piano performance, music education, and a master's degree in piano pedagogy. She is part-time faculty at Duquesne University and teaches Musikgarten and piano for the Center for Young Musicians in Pittsburgh. Now, Ellen has taught piano for over 35 years and has been a Musikgarten teacher for over 25 years. She studied piano at Juilliard, Hofstra University, and the Aaron Copland School of Music. She regularly performs in concert throughout the New York metropolitan area. She is also an active member of the Early Childhood Music and Movement Association and chair of Level 2 certification. So watch out, she'll get you. She is author of the monthly e-news sent to newly licensed Musikgarten teachers on tips how to make their classes come alive. First of all, Amy and Ellen, I got to ask, this is a very new situation for us. How are you holding up personally, business-wise, you name it? Spiritually, psychologically, how's it going?
Wow, that is a great question. It's going better than I could have imagined, I think. And every day is different, but I'm seeing the value in the things that we're doing, and taking my music classes online has really stretched me in ways I was not even aware I could do. But what I'm seeing is a great connection with my families, and in the teaching and being online together is providing something for us. It's giving us that connection. And personally, it's been great because my children have been home, and we had almost a month of having everybody in the house together. So we did enjoy that time, and lots of cooking and lots of walks and things like that. So all in all, it's a lot of work, especially the university and the ECMMA work, but it's been very gratifying.
That's nice.
How about you, Ellen?
It's been a very steep learning curve for me because I went from a full schedule of students coming to my studio here, and I went directly into online teaching without looking back. And so I took that difficult road of trying to figure out how to do it, trying to get all the equipment together, trying to figure out how to renegotiate my studio so that it would work. And in the midst of that, we had the lockdown, we had exhaustion. I found myself very exhausted a lot. I noticed I was going through grieving process for the time before, missing all of my students, and yet I would see them online. And I was so grateful that my students were able and willing to join me on this learning adventure. And so I found myself full of gratitude for them. And so it's been a very rocky road, and I would say it took me about a month and a half before I finally got into a new feeling of, okay, I can do this every day. And the other thing I discovered was that I had such a great curriculum already established that I could continue to be who I was as a teacher without having to, okay, well, what am I going to do next? I didn't have to worry about that. And the children also had, and they already knew what I was going to provide. So I had that lifeline to their hearts already connected. And so I feel like I came out of it And so it's been an adventure, to say the least.
Yeah, I personally, I can say the same thing. Running the business has been a huge challenge, and it will probably continue to be a challenge. I think with any new situation, there's pros, there's cons, there's pluses, there's minuses, and we're seeing all that stuff. There's always growth that comes out of it that we're going to see and that we hope for everyone. I know for us, you always worry about, are you going to be able to pay the bills? It's for me, it's a struggle because it's not only my family I have to worry about, it's the employees that work here, it's the people that teach the program, it's the trainers who rely on income that comes from training and stuff like that. And that's a large pool of people that you have to think about and that you have to consider with every decision you make. And I'm sure you have to consider each of those decisions on your own when you're deciding for your business. What's the best for my clientele? What's the best for me as an individual? What's the best for my family? So it's put us all in strange times. Who would have thought 6 to 8 weeks ago, I've kind of lost count as to how long it's been, that we'd be recommending and advising people on how to move. I don't want to say virtual classes, because virtual implies fake. It implies not real. We do real teaching through an online process because of the situation we're put in. Who would have thought that?
That was the breakthrough for me, when I could get past all the logistics and the cameras and the audio and all that to realize that it still was me teaching it, my energy combining with the energy of the students that come to me, whether into my classroom or through a screen. That was the saving part of everything. Yeah, I agree.
I think everybody's going to kind of know what the topic we're going to talk about today. The topic is definitely virtual teaching, online teaching. The terminology used depends on the individual you talk to. But we have pros and cons. Let's just think about a few things here. I'm just going to list out the little topics that we're going to discuss, and then we'll go through them one by one. So first, we'll talk about the pros and the cons of teaching online. And then we'll look at, maybe some technical stuff. How do we deal with this whole camera issue? Because it's a big thing. It's something I'm struggling with right now. I'm seeing three people on the screen, including myself, and I'm struggling at looking at the camera or looking at you. And then we'll talk about, for music garden teachers in particular, the curriculum and what benefits it gives you, even in the online world. So let's jump into pros. Let's jump into the pros. Let's talk about the pros first. So Amy, do you want to kick it off? Give us what's a couple pros that you see in this online teaching aspect?
There are many. I'd love to kick it off. I think that one of the biggest things I'm seeing is more participation on the part of the student. A little bit of, with the older students, there's a little bit more independence. They're taking responsibility of following my instructions or listening carefully and doing what I'm asking. They're checking back in with the camera. Those are for the older ones. And the younger ones, we're seeing the parent really pick up the pace on their modeling and providing that environment that's going to create a successful time. So that would be my first thought, is just the increased participation and a little bit of independence that I'm seeing from my older students.
Yeah, I see that also, that the parents are eager to get the camera just right and to make sure that the room has enough space for the children to move. And with a little bit of guidance, I can get the parent to think that, yeah, indeed, I'm the model, and that they're the one sharing music with their child. And that when that happens, it's a wonderful online experience for them and for me.
Yes, it's been fun to see the parents jump into fixing the environment as they see how these classes actually end up taking place. In my early days with music makers at home, the parents had set up this very nice sort of a hassock for the children to sit on and face the camera. And they quickly realized that that was just going to have to, move out of the way. And I saw the parents come in off camera, grab the hassock and carry it away to create an environment for moving. And it was just a fun thing to watch them adapt, really.
Yeah, that can be humorous. Like the other day, a mother had always been the one to set it up, that like you mentioned. And the other day, it was the father was there. So he didn't have any idea. And next to him was a big container of dirty laundry. And he kind of noticed it. And then he kind of put it further back, but you could still see it. And then the mother came in and she quickly picked it up and like ran out.
Oh,
I get it.
that gives new meaning to airing your dirty laundry, right?
Yeah.
Literally airing it. Yeah, that's not good.
So you're really seeing how you're really coming inside people's homes now, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't it so from the littlest ones. For me, where I live, some of the houses are massive, and some of the houses are very tiny. Some of them have massive furniture. Some of them have clutter everywhere. And I'm beginning to understand a little more about why certain children are why they behave the way they do in my classroom, where I have nothing, and that child is like trying to get out. And I'm thinking, because where they live, everything's everywhere. It's this visual, stimulating place. And so, yeah, that it's giving me new ideas of, Yeah.
Yes, and giving them ways to make those spaces work. I'm sure you've been working with them to try to come up with a creative way. For example, here, I use cloth placemats, and I ask them, do you have some cloth placemats? We're just going to put that on the floor, and that's going to be what we're going to walk around. And like for Pop Goes the Weasel, we go around that cloth placemat and jump in, and they just think it's a blast. These are my toddlers, of course, but we have to help the parents make that space work so they can move, so they can tap, so they can dance.
Right.
So, yeah.
So what's another kind of interesting positive that you're finding out of this?
Well, one thing that I've really noticed and I'm appreciating is that it seems to be drawing out some of my toddlers who were a little bit more on the shy side. I don't know what it was about this experience of them seeing other children, and perhaps maybe that I'm taking the microphone and I'm doing a pattern and then bringing the microphone right up to the camera. I don't know what it is, but children who were not giving me patterns before, they were coming up, but maybe not actually vocalizing. They're starting to do it. They started right away with day one that we were doing this online. So that was pretty exciting because, wow, you have something to work with then, and everybody's participatory. So that was a neat benefit.
Yeah, that's a big one. And even in my cycles program, where not only are they all participating, but they suddenly went over to the next level. I just got it in the room like, oh, we're ready to give a name. And they were thrilled. And I mean, they all came close, waiting for their turn for the so, me, do. And they were all excited. And I noticed they all now have their own microphone. I'm amazed how many of them have microphones. And they hold on to it waiting for their turn. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting? They've got control. And they've got control. It's very exciting. Something I never saw in the studio. So that was great.
I've seen the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. How do your the parents themselves, the use of time? Do they? I know how in studio situations you may have parents that straggle in a little bit late. You always have your early arrivers. You always have your late arrivers. With the online setting. How is that fitting in?
What's been your experience, Amy? Because mine, I have one family where they have been late 15 minutes since they have 4 children, and since the first child started my toddler class, they're consistently late, and the mother has tried so hard to change, and it never happens. And finally we're online and they're in lockdown, and you'd think they would be on time, and they're consistently late.
No.
What is this? So
that is a shame.
That's an exception to the rule, but
I guess so. Because I feel like I'm enjoying, first of all, I'm enjoying my waiting room in Zoom. I love the fact that they all pool together in Zoom, and I have my Musikgarten logo, and I have put in a personal message that just says class will be starting shortly. Yeah. And that's just been wonderful, and I can watch the numbers go up and see if everybody's in there. I can admit all if we're ready to go. I can admit all and then check back to see if there are any stragglers. But the great thing is, I would say by and large, that when I admit all, they are sitting there ready to go. And sometimes, a lot of times now, I'm seeing them with like their animal du jour, you know, or their whoever they're bringing with them to class today. So there's a little bit of discussion about that. And my music makers, they are sitting there ready to go. And usually when I come on screen, they get so excited. And still, I'm amazed by that. And they are also bringing things to each class that are a little bit different. And I'm playing a game with my music makers, so they know we're going to start off with a little game before our greeting song. So that's kind of an incentive. But overall, I'd say we are starting on time and we're ending on time. And you can just say goodbye, and then you say end the meeting. And you don't have even all of that, you know, the small talk that comes after a class.
I do something a little different. I was using the waiting room, but I found that still my particular parents were either still coming in late or they were showing up and they were still setting up. So instead, I open up the room ahead of time, and I put this on a music stand. And that way I could put anything, and you'll see them do the, what do we need? And that way they can, and then you see them running around. And the nice thing of doing this is that while they're, quote, waiting, they start to talk to each other and catch up. And they can't do that in the waiting room. And they see me moving around, which is the normal thing. So I wanted to get more of that informality of, you know, everyone's getting ready and everyone's getting excited. So it's coming to that same place. I still start on time. And the way I have a start time thing, I'll say, I am starting the recording, so I will remember to record. And it's time for us to begin. Let's go. And right in we go. And it kind of gets them centered. I also then can do little things like, I think that you're a little too high or too low or too close or too far. Or do you think you could remove some of those toys in the background and put them in a basket for now? So I can continue to clean up their space before we begin. Both ways work. I've tried Amy's and so whatever is your style, I guess.
I do miss that opportunity for the parents to greet each other. So I think I'm going to be looking for a balance between those two, because I do like the waiting room. I just like the organization of that, and maybe just for my mental preparation and also getting all my ducks in a row, because I have like 3 cameras and whatnot. But maybe allow a little bit of time. So when I do bring everybody in, maybe I can encourage a little bit of that conversation. Or start a little early, I don't know.
Maybe when they come in, you could have a sign, so that would be your next waiting room. Now that you're in the classroom, a checklist with the music playing in the background to cover any sounds that you could be doing. But low enough that they could continue to talk. And then when you move the sign, that might be the key to, oh, okay, it's time to get going. You know, sometimes I'll even have Flossie sitting there with the sign, all the things draped over her. Like, I'm ready to begin. You know, meanwhile, I can run around doing whatever I need to do and then get there.
Yes, actually, I have done a couple classes that way, where Mr. Bear starts off the class and usually has the book leaning up against him and a drum. But I love that idea. So I'm going to try that next time, Ellen, and I'm going to report back to you and let you know how that goes. I love that idea.
It's nice to see you're both keeping the fun aspect involved in this. You know, because you can be online and still have fun. This is kind of maybe a little off topic, but Ellen, you have a way of people of the parents being able to communicate with each other some, still building that community. Amy, you're taking a different approach. You may open up a way to do that in the future. And then, at the end of class, typically in an in-person situation, like you were saying, Amy, you usually have time to discuss things with parents. You touch base with them.
Yeah.
Do you do certain follow-up after class to continue that community building and touching base with parents? I mean, just a quick rundown,
Yes, I definitely do. I still feel like I actually have the parents' attention during class enough that I could actually say a thing or two if I need to, like we're coming up to the new curriculum. So watch your emails for information about that. So I can give them quick directives, and it seems to work really well. They seem to be able to hear me over whatever's happening, or maybe the children are leaving. And then I do try to communicate through the week if I need to, especially with the music makers levels, where you want them to have paper and crayons ready to go. Those kinds of things, are what animal game piece is coming up. So I will communicate by email at least through the week. What are you doing, Ellen?
I use a program that sends them a reminder and even a text. So in the reminder, it mentions, you need the following things. I still use that board because no guarantee they're going to read the reminders. At the end, when we sing our goodbye song, I then turn off the recording and then I say those words. Is there anything you need to tell me? Or, we have 3 more classes, and as you know, we're going to continue during the summer in the same format, and I am so excited. And then once they leave, by the way, I've learned that the leaving is a single goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, Lila. Goodbye, Jason. Goodbye, anybody who's left, as they're unclicking, and then I click, because otherwise you do 20 goodbyes. Then it converts. I use the Zoom program, and I convert that program into something that they can watch as an unlisted YouTube, so only they can see it. And I then post it in lesson notes, and I use all of the Musikgarten communiques. And they get the communique, they get the replay, and they get anything else that I need to tell them. And I make sure it's clear. I'm into e-news. And I make sure they get it. And then I'll make sure I bring up the things that I have in the e-news or in the e-notes in class. Like, oh, did you see we just did our listening? Did you notice I pulled away the picture? Now we're just listening. You could read more about that in your lesson notes, which you'll get in an email in the next 24 hours. And I try, at the end of my day, I try to get everything squared and my studio's done, and then, and off it goes. I'll even do, for my keyboard classes now, it's very clear that it's a challenge sometimes for children to do the by ear pieces, because you don't know what kind of screen they have. Sometimes they can't hear. We've got to mute things. We have all sorts of logistical things to make it sound good. I mean, they're still doing well, but I'm realizing I need to send another tutorial, and that way I actually send a video tutorial on how to do each thing each day. And it takes some time, but the parents come back and say, oh, this is so helpful. They know exactly what you're expecting. And when they come in, then so I have to think out of the box. This box. And get into their home life a little more.
It seems like, too, that, Ellen, what I was picturing as well while you're describing the scenario with the music makers keyboard students is their use of the recording. It surely elevates the connection with the student and the recording. So I hadn't thought about that, but that has to be a benefit. They're really probably relying on those activities.
You mean lying?
Relying.
Yeah. One of the things that I'll do in the tutorial is I will literally say to them, you know, it says, I'll say, oh, look at that. It says to drum along with the drum song. I wonder if Ellen thinks I need to do that every day. I bet that's just as important as playing the keyboard. Let's take out a drum and try it out. And, you know, and on the tutorial, I actually go and sit, I put it on and I drum along and I'll say, you know, I bet I could do anything here. In fact, I could probably dance with it. So I'm always looking for ways to let them know that this is as important as this. And I'm constantly reminding them, did you sing while you were playing? I can't hear you, but I'd like to know. And actually, I do have another step. I use another app that they love called Marco Polo. And I'll say, when you think you've got this piece down, why don't you send me a Marco Polo? And some of the responses have been stupendous, you know. And what that does for me is I know ahead of time where they're at. Do they need more review of that piece? Could we add chords? Do I need to show that fingering again? So I'm getting more online feedback. And to be honest, I can use that when we go back to the classroom, which I have every intention of doing. So.
I know we could discuss positives all day long. We could keep going on here. I'm going to kind of move us along a little bit, try to get us through the cons real quickly, because I don't like to talk about negatives, but there are negatives to this whole teaching format. What do you think? You could probably answer this together, but
yeah, we both know it.
Yeah, the biggest
you
con.
You gotta say it a certain way, because you know there's that delay. You gotta say the biggest con is. Go ahead.
You are not physically together with the kids in the class. You can't touch them. You can't actually be with them. That's the biggest con, isn't it?
Yeah, and one toddler literally yesterday went all the way up to the camera, put her lips in it instead of the crease, and I was like, oh.
That is funny. Yeah, it is a little frustrating, and it's different at every level, but just that inability to be there, to help guide, to that physical presence, and man, with a keyboard, it really makes a big difference. In private piano, it's like huge. You just want to reach through the camera.
Like, over a little. No, don't do that. No, wait, hold it. Oh, yeah. Okay, wait a minute. Let's keep those, and you got to start using more words. I've learned to the right, to the left, go up, go down, play your fourth finger.
No. Yeah, because you'll get a lot of this. You'll get them looking at the camera and then like trying to play, but there's nothing on this screen that's going to help them. You're like, no, look here. Yeah. And no, there's a huge disconnect when it comes to piano.
It's like Asher. Yeah. Asher, we're all clapping our hands. Would you like to join us? You can do it too.
Yeah, and that's, I think when you get down to the younger levels, one of the cons is, of course, age. I think, you know, the when they get too young and they really can make no connection with you on the screen, and I'm having some trouble with those parents just wanting to sit out until we're back into live classes, which I can completely understand. But now that I've done this for 7 weeks, I think that I might suggest to those parents, if I had this one mom back in particular, they don't have to be watching this screen, right? We're creating an environment where the mom or the parent, whoever it is that is modeling, right? So they can hear the music, they see the parent modeling, they can experience it just like they do in the toddler classroom, where they're the one walking around the outside of the room and not doing it with you. They're still picking up on everything and absorbing all of these. So I think I would encourage them that they don't have to watch the screen. They can move around the room and still absorb, and the parent just keeps on modeling. But the age thing is there is a little age group that it doesn't work super well for. And I would just also say that you can't hear the whole class singing at the same time very well, which is a little frustrating. And everything you do has a little delay. So you have to get used to, if you're going to sing and you have them unmuted, you have to just keep singing, even though you're starting to get their sound, which is slightly behind your sound. But even with the patterns, there's an adjustment there. And I think doing the shorter syllables, don't make it too legato. So you have to kind of play with that, because I think if you make it too legato and sing those tones for too long, they're going to get some weird overlap thing where the sound is going to cut out. So keep things simple. But those are a little bit of timing issues that add to the cons, I guess, just timing issues.
Related to that is the acceptance that not all families have ideal devices.
Right.
So you will have little pop up and it's someone's iPhone. And so the realization that they're watching you on a screen this tiny can be difficult. So you're not going to, quote, especially for keyboard, if you share your screen, no. So I'm learning that although I can share my screen, I have to, and this is for keyboard, that I have to remind them to look at their own. So, and that's another logistical piece, that you're going to, for the first time, be sending all of the equipment to them, which Musikgarten now is giving us the opportunity to send it direct. We didn't have that advantage in January, so I had to make sure they all had the equipment. I had to send it or have them pick it up. And then the assumption that they still have all the pieces is a big one. And then if that happens, so there's a little bit more planning, like sending a PDF copy of the staff notation preparation, because guaranteed one child is already drawn on it. Yeah. So we've got, and also they can't hear. That's a big challenge when you realize they're listening to the microphone on or the speaker on their iPhone.
Yeah.
Right.
Tiny. And if they put it onto, they can mirror it onto their TV, which one parent did. And of course they have big speakers, so the delay was really, we had to mute them. So you're caught, the challenges of the two-sidedness of this. It's not a con, it's a challenge. I think as parents get further along in this, they may invest in better equipment, which is my dream.
Well, you brought up some good points. I mean, I think everybody who's switched to online learning, whether it's early childhood people, whether it's a public school system or whatever, they're all facing a lot of these same hurdles that they have to overcome, and technology is a big part of it. Parents, a lot of them don't have the technology. There's a good amount of people who don't even have high-speed internet, stuff like that. So those are just definitely challenges we all have to deal with. Well, talking about technology, let's talk about this camera issue. I find myself struggling with the camera. I mean, right now my eyes keep bopping up and down, depending on what I'm looking at, So what's your recommendation? Do you keep it simple? Do you get more complicated? What have each of y'all done to address the camera so that you can have the best visual for your class?
Well, I think that people need to do what they're comfortable with. And although we are all being stretched beyond that, but I don't think that we have to make it sound like you have to get into some complex levels of equipment and purchases and things like that. I think we're all hoping that this is temporary, but it is nice to do it well. And I think that it's sort of like when you build your Musikgarten studio, you just start with the basics. And then if you want to, let's branch out and try this and let's try this. You could do it from a laptop and just continue to adjust, your camera on the laptop for, floor work and then for movement work. And you could probably make that work. And I am just using the computer's microphone and speaker right now. Although during class, I use my Bluetooth speaker. So I did have this, but I use this in person too. This is my JBL Flip speaker that's Bluetooth, because all of my music is on my laptop. So I've downloaded it all on my laptop. I just pull it up, it plays through this. This actually works for my classes really well. And I always double check with them. I have them give me thumbs up if they can hear, because I just need to see that from the parents and we're good to go. But then I also have, because I do webinars for Musikgarten, I also have webcams, and I have one set up for my keyboard or for manipulative work. So if we're doing the rhythm cards, or I need to show them something on the keyboard, I already have that camera set up, and so I just switch over, and then I can show them on my keys, you know, what we're playing there. And Ellen's doing it the same way. So I just have a webcam attached to a music stand and pointing straight down. And on my computer, I've figured out the shortcut that is Alt-N that takes me back to this one. So if I want to show them something, even my lesson, I could show them something on my grand over here that, you know, uses more movement. I can go back over here for close work on the keys for specific pitches, but this also works for all the manipulative cards, all of your rhythm cards that you do in the music makers at home. Having that other camera, I have it just on the floor on a nice solid background so that the cards pop out and that it's easy to see. And I feel like I'm doing like a little TV show with those cards. So it's really kind of fun, but they really like that because they can see it, and it's very easy for them to see my cards and then for them to replicate that in their home.
Yeah, I do everything there, and you can keep this as simple as possible, or you can be as obsessive as I am and you can up the game. So, so I had a feeling this would be longer than a month, and I'm in New York, so we're in an area where I don't see us resuming anything in my studio before September, and I decided that I would invest in a little bit more. So I invested in a body mic, because when I'm moving through the room, I want my voice to travel with me. So that was the reason I did that. I'm wearing headphones. They're not fancy, but every sound in my studio is going through a mixer. So I decided to invest in a little bit bigger mixer. That was my choice. What? Because yeah, I know. Yeah. Tell me about it. My husband goes, woo! And the learning curve behind that is interesting. But what I have that, and I have an iPad Pro so that when I'm doing pages with the students, I can mirror that onto their screens, and then I can use my pen, and we can do the activities together. I have another iPad for just the music, and that's going into my mixer. Another thing, I know, I'm an obsess. And then when I go to the grand piano, I have a big mic. You can't see the big mic, but there's a big mic over there is the big mic. That's my backup when my body mic goes dead. And I still have a good quality mic, and then when I'm teaching and I want to teach on the big piano, I can, or I can teach on the digital here. So yeah, I've upped the game because I'm just that type, and you don't have to do any of this. You can just do laptop, internet, whatever the mic is on the machine.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and when you're doing your classes, are you focusing on the camera like you're focusing on that camera as the child?
I
get a head shake from Amy. What about you, Ellen?
Yeah. I tried the other day the idea of, okay, parents, I'm not going to look at you. I am going to take Flossie, and we're going to have an eye game, and I'm not going, well, just going, I'd like you to do that too. And you know what? After about 20 minutes, I felt so isolated. I couldn't read the classroom. And I started doing like, what are they doing? And before you knew it, I was back to, it's just, it's one of the necessities. As much as I'd like them to, have the children not obsess on what I'm doing, the bottom line is it's a screen.
Yeah.
That one I haven't figured out. Have you, Amy?
Oh, well, I think that you're on the right track, Ellen, and I probably would imagine that most teachers are doing it this way. I think there's a balance of times where you're looking into the camera. Let's say we're doing patterns. That is a time where you're going to look right into that camera. If you're doing the hello song or the goodbye song and they've chosen, oh, we're going to swish goodbye, like we did this morning in my toddler class, then I'm singing to the camera, right? And then all those other things, the rocking, you're modeling. So you can't always be looking, but you might be facing the camera and showing and just making sure that they can see, oh, that's another way you can rock. And I find that actually the rocking is even more successful for some reason, maybe because they're looking to me to see, oh, she's going to row in a boat now. Oh, I think we'll try that too. So I think that parents are looking for that modeling, and there's just going to be an ebb and flow in where you are in the room and where you're looking. And today, to be honest, I did my dance, and when we were doing our circling, instead of me actually making a circle, I found myself like sidestepping and circling while I could face them. So I just wanted to stay connected. Yeah, where you like move your feet.
Same thing. Like we were doing 7 in a row, and they were coming up with ideas, and a lot of them were like kick, kick, turn around, kick, kick, and of course, you know, I would see their motion, and then I had to like turn it into a 7 because they would just go kick, 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 and so I'd go circle, circle, go to the side, circle. So what I've noticed is that when they're in their own space, they seem to want to create more stationary movement, and so I will watch that and then bring it out for everyone. And it's sort of like when they're improvising and you know they're singing and you say, did you mean so, me, do, or that sort of thing. I'm taking it and digesting it, and then I'm bringing it back. So there's a lot more interaction of, did I get what you just did? Or what's the name of that movement? Could you tell me the name of that movement? Or what do you call it? Is a great one. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the names are hilarious, and I'll just, you know, take the name with me. So, so I do need to be looking at the camera, but more of so I can get the feedback, so we can continue to be a child-led program and not entertainment.
And that's one of the...
Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that's one of the benefits too, if you can add another camera, like a webcam, because it's easier to do the face-to-face if you have one camera angled to the floor like I have over here, so that you can sit down crisscross applesauce and it's a fairly close view of you, but they can see you, they can see your lap, and they can see your hands tapping on your lap. So if you can set up one camera with that angle, I think it's really nice, because that way when you get up and move and you're using another camera, you're not having to look at your laptop at a weird angle to see what's going on. But I think that helps get that a little more intimate, like it's listening time, it's pattern time. So I think it helps designate those different elements of the beautiful curriculum that we're using.
So it kind of gives you the ability to transition from one activity to the next in a fairly organized way. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think what we want. Go ahead, Ellen. Sorry about that.
No, I'll just say the transition has been a learning curve for me, because it's really easy for me to say, okay, we're done with our sticks, put them away, let's move on. And I've been spending more time now of doing our song. We're done with our sticks, we put them away. I sit and I say, oh, Matthew, I see your sticks are there, you know, let's put them away. Getting the transition back into the curriculum, because that's a big part of the curriculum, is the sense of beginning, middle, end, put away, move on. Yet there's also flow, right? We want to move into the next activity. And so I'm still thinking we need to all get up. I need to get them to the floor. I need them to take out their scarves. I need to have a transition movement to get into the scarves. I may use the song before to transition in. I move to the new activity. I stop and give them ideas. I ask for suggestions. we're done. We do our traditional aligaloo. We fold our scarves. Yes, we fold our scarves or whatever they have, dish towel, whatever. I put it away. I wait, count to 50, watch. They're expecting those transitions. They've been doing transitions all season. So why did I cut that out in my earlier classes? Because I didn't need it. And now I realized they needed that. And suddenly the class is getting a little longer again. The flow is beginning to come back. And I see more satisfaction at the end of each activity.
Well, and I love that, because the ceremonies of the music makers levels, especially, or maybe starting from cycles, just the going to get the instruments, the bringing it back. Those are all ceremonies that we instill, which become habits for them. And then if you can continue to model that in this online situation, then you know it's translating to the home. And if they're starting to think in those kinds of orders and ceremonies and traditions and habits in their house, what a gift we're giving them by making sure that that's happening in the home. And I think it might look a little different in, a toddler class, as far as transitions go. At least mine look a little different than that. But I love that for as the child gets older. And also we have to remember, in this situation, we don't know what instruments they're going to have. And I don't want anyone to feel excluded if they don't have the instruments. So I try to make sure I know what people have. Some of my parents have ordered from Musikgarten the instrument kits. And so they were so happy because today they had their instrument kits and they were pulling out their scarves and everything. So now other children don't have those, but the parent is helping them improvise with home instruments. So I think that as teachers, we should be aware of what they have so they don't feel bad. If they don't all have sticks, maybe I won't play sticks. Maybe I'll come up with my own home version of that.
Yeah.
So that they all feel comfortable.
Like 2 wooden spoons works really cool.
Wooden spoons work great. And a wooden spoon on a wooden salad bowl makes a great sound.
Oh, yeah. And I love to say to the parents, can you think of something that will make a sound like a bell? I'm sure you've got something around. Look what I've got. I bought, boom, boom. Oh, that's bell. And I'm amazed what the parents will conjure up. But what you have to realize is they all go running away.
Yeah, they do.
And you realize, uh-oh, will they come back? Oh, here they come. And it's so excited sometimes they will come back with something totally different, especially the younger ones. I found this unicorn. And that's the beginning of the end, because every other child goes running away, and then they're coming back with horses and all sorts of things, and now they're included in the class, and I have to get their names, and they have to do it too, and how can we do it with it? So it's part of that cycles part, where now that the component comes into the room, what can I do with it? Or if I don't know, what do you think we can do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And it opens, we're opening up the imagination again, and so to teachers who are just getting back on, you're going to feel like you want to follow just what's on the card, and indeed you should, and anything different is going to be kind of scary. And then as they get comfortable, the children themselves begin to expand it out, and then you're off.
Yeah.
So, it's a learning curve on both sides.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we need to discuss is, if a teacher's having some fear and trepidation about jumping into this, technology-wise, they can start as simple as possible, and then a lot of it has to do with just gaining experience, a lot of improvisation, which, we're Musikgarten people, we should know improvisation pretty well. Feeling it out.
We do.
Exactly. And when you start, when you feel more comfortable, add in certain elements, add in another camera, things like that. We don't know, let's be honest, we don't know how long this is going to last. We deal with the smallest of children. Parents are probably going to be more apt to hold their kids back from coming into in-person situations for a little bit of time now. There's going to be a little uncertainty. Um, a teacher shouldn't be afraid to just take a step out and give it a shot. I'm an improvisation guy. I'm a jazz musician. That's what my schooling is. So my teachers, one of them would always say, if you hit a wrong note, just go a half step up or down, and then you got a right note. Or he would say, if you hit a wrong note, play it several other times. That way they make sure you meant to play that wrong note. So I think we kind of have to take the same aspects with this stuff, So, well, you kind of touched on a little bit, talking about the curriculum. Of course, we're Music Garden people. We don't talk bad about any other curriculums. We have respect for them. We're Music Garden people because we believe in the curriculum. Do you feel like have you had to change anything in the curriculum to be able to move it to this realm?
I haven't changed very much in the curriculum. I've been able to go through the lesson plan pretty much as is. The only changes I see that I'm making weekly would be if something lends itself to being a group dance, it's more accommodating that dance. How do we turn that into something that they can do just parent-child? Or taking a story and changing that in the music makers level, and maybe doing motions with more stories, or having them help tell the story, or they become the character. So I'm having to find ways to maybe just make some accommodations with what's in front of me. Or for the younger kids, if it's a steady beat thing, and early on when we were doing, it was supposed to be a stick activity, and I thought, oh, they don't have sticks. We just turned it into a dance. We stood up and we danced it, and it was fantastic. Or we just sit down in front of the camera and find different places to put that steady beat. That steady beat went in some funny places, like on your ears and your shoulders. So the curriculum it's beautifully designed. If you can stick to it, I think you've got a really solid lesson. Of course, we know that we have that. And just tweak it here and there to make it work for online. So that's kind of my take on it. Just trust it. Trust the material. Don't add to it, except for maybe just adding a prop like Mr. Bear.
For me, it's when my brain says, "Oh, that's going to be impossible." I remember that quote that saying it's impossible is really just an opinion, and that there is a solution. So the ensembles and music makers, I initially went, "Oh, this is going to be impossible. How can I have a group, and how are they going to play together?" And I remember Lorna saying that, remember that all the levels are almost, they're optional. Like when you add another level, it's because there's a readiness for that next level. So if you have two groups playing at the same time, that's a next level, but you have to look at your situation, and if it's going to be this group and then that group. And so the impossible suddenly became a new challenge of, I think we did the different insects with a different sound, and they had to find an instrument for the different sounds. So, and we were doing duets. So I started off by saying, let's do solos, because solos are great online, and each child had their own instrument that they had selected for an insect. And they, of course, played it, and some of them we couldn't hear, but we could imagine hearing them. And then I would say, what insect? And of course they'd tell me. And once we got them all playing, and I didn't mute them, because it was amazing how the children really wanted to hear each other's insect. Then I would say, okay, Eleanor, I want you to play with somebody else, or play with me. And we would improvise. Now, I don't have to worry about a delay, because this is improvisational. I'm shaking while they're, zipping. And then all of a sudden they would stop, and I would stop, and then I would do a little, and they would do it back. And we showed that experience of duet. We just weren't playing the same thing together, which cannot be done. That is impossible. On the other side of it, if I'm singing and they all sing back, that is an ensemble, right? So I'm beginning to play with that sort of ensemble feeling. I'll say, okay, the three of you, you're going to be crickets, and the three of you are grasshoppers. Let's hear the crickets. Let's hear the grasshoppers. Let's hear crickets. And then I'll use your sign. You could have a sign with the cricket and the grasshopper. Cricket, grasshopper. Cricket, 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 grasshopper. Make it loud. Make it so there are ways. It's not what we did in the studio. It's just a new way. That's going to be very interesting in the next months as we begin to develop. I always love Musikgarten because it's a resource. This is not a script. It's a resource. I get the page. It gives me ideas. I could stick with that. And then there are expansions. And then there are expansions. And then there are even more. And so, but I'm sticking with the basic. So yeah, absolutely. I haven't really come up with anything else than that one, I guess.
Okay.
Have you, Amy? Anything else?
No, but I like the idea of going back and forth between the different ensembles, because that is a trickier part when you have children by themselves at home and you're trying to build the splat drat, where did he go? How do you do that? But maybe taking turns is the key. And maybe we do make little signs that one has the weasel. You could take the game piece for music makers, copy it, and put it on a stick like this. And you could show them who's next. These are from my private piano lessons. But you could show them whose turn it is. I love that. Mm-hmm. And also I think you might have also been referring to my idea that I put on our Facebook page yesterday about frogs. So I wrote out the word frogs, and I wrote it using my webcam so they could see me, and I wrote it out and we spelled it together, and I wrote frogs. So I did the poem frogs, and every time we said frogs, I would put the frog sign under the camera, and they had to say frogs and jump at the same time. So we did that poem probably 3 times in a row, and it was the most successful time I think I've ever had during that poem.
Man, so you're kind of sticking with the basics and then finding ways to adapt it to this situation,
Exactly.
And it's kind of like learning a piece of music. When you learn a piece of music for the first time, you learn, whether it's written page or where you learned it by ear, you kind of learn the exact, and then you learn to improvise off the top of that. At least in my experience of being a jazz musician, that's I'll learn a piece of music one way, and then the further I get into it, the more I can adapt it, the more I can improv on top of it. So,
and I think it really simplifies it for the teacher. I think that what teachers need to know is it's there, it's in the curriculum, and there's no need for you to have to do a lot of extra pulling in this and pulling in that. Really, just trust the curriculum, but then find ways to make it special so that the parent sees the value of the online lessons and sticks with it with you. If there is something that you can make it special by bringing in maybe a unique instrument, or maybe you play recorder more often than you normally would, things like that to give it value. But that's the beauty of the Musikgarten curriculum, is we can stick with it and trust it.
Well, and ultimately you're the local teacher, and you want your families to continue to come back to you and trust you because you trust a certain curriculum. So
yes,
yeah, that's going to be the next challenge, is retention within this venue, and convincing parents that we actually moved forward. There's such a thing. I'd rather be in, but regardless. And I have to also keep my head from going nuts on thinking this is summer, and it's traditional in my community that my locals tend to go into the summer world, and I get New Yorkers coming out and filling my classrooms. And I don't know if that's going to happen this summer. And so what I'm doing is I'm focusing on now, and I'm planning the summer. I've got it on my website, and I'm already thinking September. I'm already working that up and realizing there are going to be a few people who will continue in the summer, and there are a few that will come back in September. I'm not even going to that place of, we'll come back when you're back in your studio. That's a smaller percentage than it feels like. And I have to resist that no one's going to come back once this session is done. No. They've been committed with me. I also speak in my studio. I'm very, very clear. I say, after we're done with this session, we'll be moving right into the cycle of summer. And it is just a joy. And I was even thinking that perhaps I might do some of those things at the beach. I wonder if we could do a socially distant class, yada, yada, yada.
I think that's an excellent point. And in fact, Ellen, I just did that with a couple of all of my toddlers. I gave them the big plan. I gave them the, hey, we're moving into What Do You Hear? And that's an 8-week curriculum. That's going to take us right through to the end of whenever that was, I guess June. And I said, and then this class is ready to move on to cycles. So let's take a look at this seashore curriculum, or wait, that's Music Makers, summer curriculum for cycles. So we're going to take a 5-week foray into the summer of cycles, which will bridge us to our fall cycles class. So I think giving them that big picture, that I've got a plan for your life, is sort of that 10-year music garden plan that we have that teachers can use. I think it was really helpful, because right after that, I had 2 parents sign up for like the next session. So yeah.
Time to get that going. Yeah, more. Yeah, I need to start. Also, it does help to let them know that, I'm going through this too, and I need reassurance that you're going to stick with me. So could you do me a favor, and could you register today, and then we'll work out the details of what it's going to cost you, or you can let me know privately if it's a bit of a challenge, because I'm sure we can work out a way to make this work. And I did have one parent who had done, monthly payments, and as soon as this time came, she stopped paying, and I said nothing. They came, I welcomed them, she was part of it. I never mentioned it. I just would send that little monthly reminder, and all of a sudden, boom, it came in the mail. It was like, oh, good. and then I get that, and she's having more fun than I've ever seen her in the class. When she would come to the studio, she was a little nervous about it, and I think she was a little nervous with her body, and the kid would hide behind her, and she'd sort of sit there. I could see it. And at home, she is doing it all, and she's singing along, and it's like she's thriving in this online safe space. Wow. So yeah, I think I've got a life for there. So now I'm get her to enroll for the next session. That's our goal. Yes.
Awesome.
Well, I hate to end the conversation because it keeps rolling on. I think we went over. We were thinking 20 minutes or something like that. We've definitely gone over 20 minutes, but that's completely fine. That's the wonderful thing with the digital world, is we can keep it in full. We can cut it and paste or whatever we want to do. So. Amy, Ellen, I just want to thank you for sharing your kind of struggles, positive things going into this online world of teaching. To the person who's listening to this podcast, I want to thank you for taking the time to share your time with us and listen to our perspective of teaching young children in very unusual times. While it may not be an ideal circumstance, I personally think we've provided some creative solutions to keep music in the lives of young children and their families. The anxiety that kids are going through right now, this is a huge benefit for them to be able to do. The anxiety that parents are going through right now, this is a huge benefit for them, because we know making music, singing, dancing helps relieve that anxiety that families are feeling. And them doing it together is that much more beneficial. Music Garden, we're committed to staying with our mission of giving all children the best music opportunities in a classroom setting, whether live or online. We hope to continue to be your go-to resource for your business to teach young children music. Thank you both.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.